Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion of C3 films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about the movie The Last Night in Soho. It's an Edgar Wright film. It's now available on HBO Max. It came out a little bit while ago. So, spoiler alert: we are going to be talking about the movie in its entirety. So, if you haven't seen it, make sure you go over to there and check it out, and then come back and watch to see what we have to say about it. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So, Last Night in Soho, I wasn't the one that was expecting. I was going to watch this on my own. I was very surprised to say that for you to tell me that you wanted to watch it, because I knew what the tone of the movie was going to be, and I know how much you hate horror films. And while I wouldn't say this movie is explicitly a horror film, it has plenty of horror elements, enough that I think that someone who doesn't like horror films or gets scared by horror films could probably be scared by this film too. So, like, how did you end up feeling about it?
There was like one jump scare, and then I was like, all right, I'm done. But then I was like, well, actually, it wasn't that bad. You made me watch, what was that? That one scary movie, the fourth one with I forget the name of
No.
it, but you made me watch that scary movie. And then we watched, that vampire one. I can't remember the name of anything today,
Oh,
apparently.
okay, I do remember the vampire one I made us watch. Yes.
But this one wasn't that bad compared to the other ones. But this one I felt was more of a cinematic. Um, there's a lot of eye candy, in terms of cinema. It was beautifully shot, beautifully edited, just really well put together in terms of like the visuals and visual
Mm-hmm.
storytelling was amazing. It felt a little bit like, if it wasn't so horror-esque, it would have been up for an Academy Award film, or it could be. Maybe it still could be because of, everything that is in it. But at the end of the day, it was like, my boyfriend was telling me that it's kind of like a really nice looking episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark or Goosebumps. And then I was like, this feels like a really fancy Lifetime movie.
Oh, wow. Damn.
And I remember this episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark from like, oh, way back when there's like a kid who was like a scary kid, and he kept saying, I'm cold. And like the kids were afraid of him, but all he really needed at the end of the that show was like he just needed a jacket. So
Mm-hmm.
it kind of felt like that, where the ghosts are just like, our bodies are here, save us, help us. Like, that was it. Like, they were just haunting her because they needed her to find their bodies, but then the house burns down. So I'm just I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a huge fan of this movie. I think I told you a little bit about that at the beginning. I didn't hate it. I did not like it, but I didn't think it was that great either. There are a lot of things that I like about it, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, in terms of story and the the plot, it just felt a little bit it felt a little short for me. It reminded me a little bit, not as bad, but it reminded me a little bit of The Secrets of Dumbledore, where it's basically you are made to know that you're not going to know what's going on and what's going to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
so I felt very confused about what was going on for quite a bit of time. Like, maybe we did need just a little bit more exposition here, because I was just very unsure of what was going on. And then when everything is revealed at the end, I'm like, oh, okay, sure.
Right. And I guess for me, kind of felt the opposite, because I only have two major point problems with the movie, and they basically come at the end. But I feel like everything else for the movie is properly set up, like, without telling you. Like, from the beginning, you get the idea, and that's the thing. Like, I think it comes down to, like, how much you're able to notice, because at the beginning, you're basically told, but also shown, that she can see spirits or has some type of connection with spirits, because her mom has been dead for a while, and you find out that her mom killed herself. And they never tell you why her mom killed herself, but you find out in the story from the grandmother, who also knows about the ability, that it's implied that the mother had the same ability. And when you start going through the story and you start seeing how much this ability is messing with the main character, then you start to understand why the mother would have killed herself. And so I like the fact that there's storytelling that you can gain from just the world itself without the story actively telling you this is what happened. And when you see her mom, when you see her mom in the beginning, when her mom's in the mirror, and then her grand says, "Have you seen her?" and she says, "No." So right away you realize, okay, so she's lying about the fact that her ability is still active because she doesn't want her grandmother to worry about her, which ties into the fact that later on that ability is going to get overactive when when she's in that room. And so like the thing that like the movie to me is a very basic horror story, because this is a horror story. I watch a lot of horror movies, so like there's a lot of like elements that are just basically the same in the horror story. The there's the red herring of the person that you think is bad but isn't actually bad, and then the switch at the end where the person that you think was a victim was actually the cause of the thing the entire time. So like it has those elements, but the thing I think that helped make it stand apart for me is the complicated emotions that come from why the thing that's happening is happening. The ghosts who are victims are also the victimizers, and that's not something you normally see in ghost stories. Usually the ghosts are one or the other. They're either the victimizer or the victims, not usually both. And so when you don't know the full story about what these ghosts are and why they look the way that they look, it just seems very weird. But then when you find out that, hey, she had to block out their faces and everything else like that, and then she started killing them, so for her this is like what they were for her, so that's their representation. And then I love that moment when at the end the ghosts are like, you find out the ghosts are like pleading. They're like, "Help us, help us, help us." And you're like, well, yeah, the ghosts are like in pain because they've been murdered in brutal ways. And they're like, "You need to kill her." And then the girl looks at them like, "No, I'm not doing that." Because that's the thing. Like I felt the same way. I'm like, actually, they kind of got what they deserved. So even though they're ghosts and they're suffering right now, like it wasn't great that she killed all these dudes, but these dudes also like really, really mess with her. And so I'm like, I like the fact that the villain of the piece is doing something in order to get catharsis and vengeance for the things and that were enacted upon her and other women at the time, because it goes to they make sure they go out of their way to show you that these men don't just do this to this one girl, they do this to all these different women. And so because of that complication of interaction, I think that the movie was a little bit elevated a little bit more for me than it would have been if it had just had like a villain that was only a villain and like ghosts that were only just like the murdered.
Yeah, definitely. It had that element of the villain is not 100% a villain. It just it's layered.
Hmm.
With the different motivations that kind of make sense, so you feel for them, and that's kind of why I really liked how the main character was basically telling the old woman, "I agree with you, and I understand. I
Right?
completely get it. Like I'm on your side, basically." So I really liked that part of it. I think it just took a while for me to get there because I think it was about
Right.
45 minutes in when she first really starts to go to that,
Crazy.
fantasy land.
Oh,
It
yes.
takes her a
Yes. There's a
while
lot
to
of
get
setup.
there. Yeah, there's a lot of setup, and I was confused because she had already had that experience of having that dream, and being Sandy, and so I was like, so is she just dreaming, or is she really walking through, uh, mentally, like in a spiritual way? Is she really walking through into the past? Why are we seeing the past? What are we getting from this? I just wasn't
Hmm.
really being led in any specific direction, and so I just really wasn't sure where we were going with it. All I knew was that she's seeing things that
Hmm.
may or may not be real. I'm like, is this a kind of a fantasy movie? Because I went into it not knowing what genre it was, and so I was like, is this like Narnia? Are we going on an adventure? And she gets the role play as someone in the '60s, like she's always dreamed of.
Right.
I just didn't know what it was gonna be, and it was like 45 minutes, and I was like, I still don't understand where we're going with this. But then like the more I watched, the more I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. It's kind of cool. I wish she would stop running from them, because I was like, what are you gonna do? Like, are we just gonna keep running the whole time? There's a lot of running away.
Hmm.
And then there was a time where she almost stabbed Joe Costa in the head with scissors, and we, like, for some reason we are just like, okay, so we're not gonna ever address this again. It's just gonna be fine now. Even though Joe Costa was like, "What the actual fuck?"
Yeah.
Which I really loved.
That
I was
actually made me laugh.
like, yeah, I was like, "This is good. I like that."
That was like the most real reaction anybody
Yeah,
could have. The first
yeah,
is just shock, like, oh my god, I just died. And then you have realization of what just happened to you. But it's like, what the? Like, I was like, I was like, that's great direction. Great direction, Edgar.
yeah.
Great
That's good.
direction.
Good acting. Good acting.
But,
But
yeah.
yeah, it just I just wasn't sure where we were going with it. And then at the end, I was like, okay, so she was getting like she got the hickey, so we know that there's some kind of like
I
connection,
forgot
the
about that
physical,
hickey.
right? But then that's like the only physical connection that we ever get. So it felt like a lost hint that was never resolved. And then the other thing that kind of confused me was like, if these were ghosts that were haunting her, why was she kind of being haunted by someone that was still alive? So I was just like, the mechanics of that was a little weird for me, because I was like, if Sandy is the person that she lives with, why was she, taking the form of Sandy and experiencing what Sandy was experiencing when that wasn't actually a ghost?
Right. So the mechanics are going to be like that's something that leads into my issue with the movie. I what I read as her powers was that with she was connecting with the past, and she was like seeing through Sandy's eyes, but then also sometimes not seeing through Sandy's eyes, just being able to observe the past as the past just was, without being able to affect it or influence it or whatever, despite like certain things happening, because it's like that was her like dream walking or whatever. But that does bring up two things. Well, so one of the things that it brings up is that I forgot about the hickey, which the whole point of that is to imply that there's some connection with the real world, right? So like it the dreams that she's having are actually having a physical effect on her. So that's interesting because yeah, I had forgotten about that. So and that never comes up again. So that's kind of a strange thing. But the other issue that I have, because once again, like the mechanics of her ability, as far as what I was able to understand, were that she was able to see these things and nobody else was. Her power allowed her to connect with either the the ghost hauntings or able to connect with the just the past, like the spirits of the past, or through their spirits able to like see them in the past and see what happened. So that's what I thought her powers were. I did not understand why at the end of the movie, real life Sandy was able to see the ghost.
Oh, yeah, that too. Yeah, that was weird. Yeah,
So
there's a lot of stuff going on that I just wasn't sure how to really think about and piece together. Because there's also the fact that that I forget, our main character witnessed or like watched Sandy being murdered. So if she's
yep.
being haunted by the guys, why would they show her that and not the truth of her murdering them?
Yes, and that was that's the other part of my issue with the mechanics. Which is I did not realize that your vision could be a metaphor. I didn't realize that you could see metaphors, because Sandy says later, "Oh, I guess a girl did die in that room. Me, my dreams, and they all died that day." Blah 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 blah. And I was like, okay, but up until this point, everything that this girl was seeing were either ghost apparitions or the history of things that actually happened. So why all of a sudden is she able to see a metaphor? Why is she seeing a metaphor as opposed to seeing what actually happens? And I thought that was another thing that I thought was a little strange. Her vision, for all intents and purposes, should have just showed the death. Like, but I think that's why it was also framed that way, is that when we see it, we see like her eyes and the knife, and we just see the knife going back and forth, and we just see like the blood going everywhere. So you can't really see who's getting stabbed. But that's for us as the audience. Like, is that exactly what the character sees? Like, did the character go from witnessing a scene on the side of a bed looking to being like zoomed in and only seeing a knife moving back and forth and just blood splattering everywhere? Like, I don't know. And then, because then when you go to the wide, you could say, oh, yeah, you saw the knife going like this into the guy, and the blood splattering everywhere was the guy's blood falling on her and everything else like that. Fine, whatever. But it felt weird, because it's like, how did the main character see this? So that absolutely is a little bit of a kind of bait and switch on the mechanics, just so that we the audience can be fooled. So I think that is my biggest issue, with my second biggest issue being that I don't know why Sandy. I mean, I guess Sandy didn't really know what the girl was able to do, but I don't see why Sandy tries to kill her. I really do. I was like, I couldn't understand that, because I'm like, first of all, I don't understand why Sandy even admits it, because no one knows, and even this girl doesn't know, because she got the details wrong. She was talking about how a woman had been killed there. No woman had ever died there, only men. So this girl isn't a threat, but she's going to kill her. But at the same time, the girl is like, hey, I agree with you. And even if they were to talk about it, even if they were to sit down and she would try to see if the girl would be a threat and told her everything that happened, the girl would still be like, yo, they had it coming. We good, fam. I just can't stay here because these ghosts are making me crazy. But, yo, you do you. Peace.
Yeah.
Seriously, though.
I don't really feel fooled. I feel like I was lied to, because they directly showed us something false and then turned around and was like, just kidding, actually it's this. But you're completely right. It did, like, that whole ending, I think that's why it was just kind of like, it felt a little bit like a fancy Lifetime movie, because it just felt like the end was like, well, here's the ending, and and it really did happen fast. It's like complete opposite of the length of the ending of Stranger Things, but
Yeah. Complete
but
opposite.
yeah, which we had just talked about, by the way. But honestly, that whole ending really did bother me, not just because, like, there was no reason for real Sandy, like old lady Sandy, to kill our main character with the poison. And then when she started revealing the truth in that tea drinking conversation, I was like, when she said, drink your tea, I was like, great.
Yep, that's what I said too. I was like, oh, I've seen this movie before.
Poisoned. And then she reveals her whole thing, and I was like, well, here we go. We're getting the monologue from the main villain, and then I was like, and it's an old lady. Ooh. And then she like takes out 2 kids. By the way, I was like, dude, like, even though she gets you like off guard, still, like, I'm pretty sure you can handle this. But by the way, I was really worried about John the entire movie, because he kept ending up in kind of precarious situations with.
He's also way too nice. Oh my god, that character is super nice. Like, they were really hammering it home how nice he was, even to the point when he like gets into the situation and like has to go running with bloody footprints, like stepping on glass. The next day he's still like, hey, how are you okay, blah 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 blah, and not like freaked out at all. I'm like, hey, by all means, it's something different, but I was thinking to myself, this character is way too nice.
Yeah, because, like, from his point of view, it's like, I'm gonna get accused of rape by a white girl, and this is the end of my life, basically. So,
Mm-hmm.
it was a little weird for me, but, I mean, that aside, there were just quite a few problems here. One thing that I just could not get over is how the house fire started. That just
The
being from
cigarette.
a cigarette in a box, and like I don't know if any of you out there have ever tried to like start a fire or burn things. Like go try it out. Like do it safely.
Wait, whoa, whoa,
But
whoa, 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 whoa. She's kidding. Don't actually try to start a fire in your houses, guys. TV shows is not
I'm
setting
a,
fire
I have
randomly
experience.
to things. But,
All right, I take it
um,
back. I take it back. It really is not that easy to burn something. I mean, like I have burned paper. That's literally my experience with burning stuff. Is paper. It's part of my culture to burn paper. It's very
mhm.
difficult to do. It just fizzles out because of how I guess they make paper nowadays. And like one can argue that her stuff is old, but from a cigarette on a vinyl, which is basically plastic, um,
Is there
which
like oil on vinyl or something? I
I
I just
don't
assumed
think
that because vinyl's
so.
old, maybe there's something flammable in vinyl. I wasn't sure. I thought that that was the reason they showed us that it landed in the vinyl case because there's something about vinyl that's flammable.
I don't really think so. I know film, like the old film, is extremely flammable, but I have never heard of vinyl being flammable. Maybe that needs to be a fact check. If anyone out there
Mhm.
has a moment to Google that, um, I'm like, where's Straka when you need it?
I know, right? Yeah, we need some
our
answers.
our fact check person here. Um, but it just didn't seem very plausible for a cigarette in a box next to vinyl to cause a fire. But even if it did, it would not burn the house down that quickly. So,
Right.
the other thing is, I didn't understand why we needed the fire. Like, what was the purpose of it besides
To
have
kill Sandy.
to kill Sandy? But the thing that bothered me was I was like, the evidence. The evidence is being burned away. And I was like, I want our main character to solve the crime and be like, suck it, police. I was for
Right.
real. But all of it just fizzled away, and yeah, I did not enjoy the ending. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed the
me neither.
beginning. I
Hmm.
love the beginning. The beginning is amazing. There's so much visual storytelling in the beginning. Like if you really pay attention to it, they don't feed you anything with
Mm-mm.
words. It's all spoon
Nope.
fed to you by visuals. Like if you just listen to only like without watching it, you'd be confused. You'd be like, "This is so boring." But if you watch it, it's so beautiful. Like there's so
Yeah,
many
and
things about this movie. It's just a sight to see because of how visually pleasing it is.
I think one of the things I really want to talk about to go along with that visual, like storytelling, and also how visually pleasing it is also how well they do the interchanging between the two lead actresses in this film. One of them being Sandy played by Anya Taylor Joy, and the other one Tomanzi McKenzie or something like that is her name. But they have these scenes where you see the two of them in the mirror and they're like doing the same thing, and that's not necessarily something that's all that impressive. We've seen that in other things in the past, but what they do that is like really impressive is when they do a dance sequence, and in the dance you have one actor dancing with two different girls at the same time, being the same person in the same dance, with one like kind of take, with no cuts. So one take with no cuts, and interchanging between the two girls in the same dance. And that is a like a feat. That is like a technical feat that I thought was just very, very cool. And it made me wonder if like it was practical, where every time they kind of zoomed in, the girls just quickly ran away and this and that and the other. Or like when they, because there are times when the person's like the camera's spinning around and you see the girl like going behind the guy's head, but then when she comes out on the other side, it's a different girl. And you're like, was it one of those things where they ducked down and ducked up? But like, however it was, like that they did it, it's a very mechanically appealing scene, and it's very fun to watch. It's like one of the most fun scenes in the movie to watch, actually.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. It's kind of stuff like that where you just kind of wonder how did they do it. Like you can think of ways that they might have do it, like not something that I would be able to do. Obviously, they would probably have to use computers and stuff. I don't really know if they actually did that as a one take. I think they probably filmed it twice, with
Probably.
once with both actresses, and then kind of like did some computer magic
Layered,
to, yeah.
maybe.
But like it's so seamless because like I don't know how hard it is anymore to just um like replace stuff and like kind of blur them together, because if you take a picture of like me standing in front of a door once, even if you mark it and then you come back the next day and you try to take that same exact photo again, it's not going to be the same. There's going to be like slight
Lighting and all this
differences.
other stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. And just like the placement of my hair and stuff like that, like just slight, differences. Um, if you put them right next to each other, you're gonna, or like if you cut from one to the other one, you're definitely gonna notice it. So, but I know that there are ways in technology these days to fix it. I just don't know how to
Mm.
do that, but it's stuff like that I it's so hard to do. It really is hard to do.
Hmm.
So that was an amazing shot in my opinion, and it's just cool because if you think about it, it's just them dancing. It really doesn't contribute too much to the movie, but it's stuff like that when you build a story and you put stuff like that into the movie, you really like flesh it out, and it's just enrichment. It gives more life to the characters in the film and just visually, um, and that's something that I think not enough films do.
Yeah, I 100% agree. But yeah, so I think for me, at the end of the day, like, while I wouldn't say that the movie was like, I think you're right. I don't think the movie is amazing, but at the same time, like when I was watching it, I found myself enjoying it up until the end. Like the end was the only time I found myself actively asking questions or being confused, like on the mechanics of her powers, or even just confused on the reasoning of why do we feel like we need to kill this character versus like just having a moment of, hey, like, look, I agree with you. I wish I wanted these people to be caught, but now I know that you're the one that made them suffer. Good. Peace. I'm out. Like, it was, so the end was the only thing that got me asking questions. So that wasn't my favorite part about the movie, but I definitely would say like a good 70 to 80% of this movie I enjoyed. Like,
Yeah,
ridiculously, I enjoyed.
I agree. I was saying that this is like if Sucker Punch turned out well, it would be this movie.
Holy, oh no. I mean, no. I mean, when you think about it, though, interesting.
BTW, check out our episode on Sucker Punch. It wasn't that good. But yeah, that's how I feel about this movie. The other thing that I
Hmm.
really hated though was when the old man gets hit by a car when he was
Oh,
standing
I
in the middle of a street
know.
forever. It's like those. It feels like whoever made these decisions, writing or directing, they took stuff that we have seen before that are not very good, and it's kind of like they just inserted it into the movie just to get the movie to where it needed to go. But then like the rest of it was like well thought out, very beautiful, very well acted. It's just kind of like pushed forward a little bit by these dumb little mechanics that people just use sometimes to get their movie finished, like to
Right.
finish the
And
story.
right. And mechanics that you would think that we were past by now, but
Yeah.
e- even someone like Edgar Wright isn't immune to that. Which, Edgar Wright is like the person who did movies like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, World's End, and Baby Driver, like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. This is a very seasoned director, but even he isn't immune to kind of using these kind of contrivances to push the story along. So
Yeah.
just something to think about.
I feel like these
But
things were well loved at some point, but I think we're done with them now. These
yeah.
little mechanics. Like, I'm done seeing people being hit by the car when they're standing in the street for quite some time now.
Right. As if like all the people that are on a long open road where anybody driving would be able to see the person in the middle of the street well before they actually get there. So it's
Yeah.
like everybody is always looking down at just the right time when someone's been in the middle of the street for a good like 40 seconds of like driving time, which would give you plenty of time to react. But
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else that you got, Cheryl? That's everything from me. I'm kind of good, but was something you want to say?
Yeah, the last thing I have to say is because I Googled it since Draco's not here to help us do that. Vinyl records do melt and burn in fire, but if you held a match to a record, it would not ignite. It does not pose a significant fire hazard.
Well then, I guess we got the answer to that question.
Check and mate.
Well, well then, I thank you for that, Cheryl, and all of you out there. If you want to see more of us talking about this and other things, make sure that you guys check us out on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/C3Films. It'd be great to see you over there. But yeah, like that's what we thought about the last night in Soho. What did you think about it? Did you like other movies that Edgar Wright does? Did you feel like this is one of his weaker movies? Do you think it's one of his stronger movies? Did you feel like the mechanics that we were complaining about here aren't that really a big deal for you? What have you thought about it? Comment below. Let us know. And while you're down there, if you give us a like, share, subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.